world's coming from me, not at me. And therefore, that's a positive thing because I can affect change.
I believe that constant challenge builds discipline, it builds confidence, and it builds mental clarity and more positive mental health.
Stay super consistent, and consistency is king, and that'll get you to whatever health goal that you're striving for.
It's only 14,000 miles until you've done the first mile.
Welcome to the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. I'm Leanne Mayberry, Danny's wife and the producer of this show. Danny will be back next week, but today I get to share with you what I feel like is a timely message. The new year brings a unique opportunity to reset, refocus, and commit to habits that truly make a difference. But how do you build routines that stick, especially when life gets busy? In today's episode, we're exploring sustainable habits that fuel mental well-being, physical health, and personal growth. And to make it extra special, we're sharing wisdom from some of our most inspiring guests, whose insights can guide you towards lasting change. Let's start with the foundation of any great day, your morning routine. For many, mornings set the tone for how the rest of the day unfolds. One of our previous guests, former Blue Angel John Gucci Foley, shared his glad to be here wake-up routine, a practice rooted in gratitude and intentionality. Here's what he had to say.
Those struggles when they hit us, obstacles when they hit us, they feel very real. But what I realized was the world's actually coming from us, not at us. Interesting point if you want to go deeper there, right? So initially you feel like the world's coming at you and it's out of your control. And that causes a lot of fear and stuckness. And what I realize now is that actually, no, the world's coming from me, not at me. And therefore that's a positive thing because I can affect change, right? And the change that I really want to affect is starting with gratitude. So even in those moments, that you can find something to be grateful for. Now, I don't wait for those moments to be grateful. I try to do it every day, build that resiliency, build that reservoir. So one thing that I like to do is I call my glad to be here wake up. And that's every morning when I wake up. You can train your brain to wake up happy, by the way. It's positive, there's neuroplasticity. And one of the ways you train your brain is just what are you grateful for in the present moment? So as soon as my eyeballs open up, I've trained myself to think about not what's the next problem I have. Don't check my iPhone. I just go, well, what am I grateful for in the present moment? And every day's different. Like you're traveling, you and your wife, you're waking up at a new place every day, right? And the same with me. I do a lot of traveling, but today I'm home. I'm home in Sun Valley, and I just woke up and I said, wow, I'm home today. That's something I'm grateful for. Hey, it just snowed last night. And that's cool because I'm a skier, So, hey, I got 2 inches of snow. That ain't much, but it's something, right? And my point is, whatever's in the present moment, I've learned to connect back to the present moment and find something grateful for. And then here's another technique I've learned is instead of stopping right there, I go back 24 hours or go back as far as you want in the week or your life and just start to reflect on what do you have grateful for? What happened yesterday? And that's why 24 hours works. Just a person's smile. I think about that. And then here's the last technique, because I think there's 3. So it's present moment, go back 24 hours, but then go forward in your day and just set a personal intention. Like you came up in my mind. I said, hey, I'm going to get the rare privilege to be with Danny on the podcast. And hopefully this helps somebody. And I just put that intention into my head this morning. Simple technique, man. And you do that, brother. And anybody out there who's struggling, just start and you'll see over time how it makes you feel.
As you can see, starting your day with a moment of gratitude doesn't just feel good. It helps you approach challenges with a positive mindset. Whether it's journaling, stretching, or even just taking a quiet moment for yourself, a simple morning habit can set you up for success. Now, once your morning is off to a great start, staying active is a key ingredient for both physical and mental resilience. Austin Alexander, a fitness advocate and Navy veteran, shared how prioritizing physical health has transformed his mental health. Let's listen to his take.
That's the biggest part. To me, it's no longer about like looking good. It's about feeling good and being able to, when you do things that are hard physically, your mind goes into a dark place and you really have to do really hard things in order to get there. And when you do that, like for me, I ran a 10 miler the other day, and I'm not a distance runner by any means, but it was hard. And I was in the pain cave for about 6, 7 of those miles. Everything I do now, I compare that tough time to like what I do now, whether it's everyday stuff. Like if I'm like, okay, cool, I now have to go for this 7-mile run. It's not going to be bad. I just ran a 10-miler. Or if you are speaking to somebody and they have an issue with you, or you're just able to approach the situation more confidently. You can think more clearly. And I'm constantly comparing things that happened to me in my lifetime to the hard things that I've done physically and mentally. So yeah, for sure. That's the whole reason Battle Bunker was started as a fitness brand, is because I know that for me, I use fitness to get myself out of tough mental situations. Fitness is something that's always going to be there. Whether you have a gym available or not, you can always go for a run. You can always drop and do some push-ups. It's always there. And I just want to show people how much of an effect, a positive effect on your mind that fitness can have.
What do you hope that your viewers are taking away from your content that you're putting out there?
I hope they are, everything I do is based around challenge. I hope that they are challenging themselves. It doesn't have to be anything that I'm doing. It doesn't have to be, it can be even more than what I'm doing. I imagine a lot of people out there are doing more physically than what I'm doing, but it's all about challenging yourself. I believe that constant challenge it builds discipline, it builds confidence, and it builds mental clarity and more positive mental health. So everything is based around challenge that I do. So I just want them to go outside of that comfort zone and go into that pain cave, for at least a few minutes, if not an hour or two.
Austin's insights are powerful, but for those of us just starting out or starting over, Canadian Army veteran Dave Morrow offers a reassuring perspective. He reminds us that it's not about lifting the heaviest weights or running the fastest miles. It's about simply showing up and doing what you can. Here's Dave.
The most important thing is to embrace the fact that you don't know what you don't know, and to just be curious. If your mindset isn't aligned with what you actually want to do, the old expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. I can't force anybody, nor can you, to do anything that they fundamentally don't want to do. You have to genuinely want to do it. Now, typically, people that come into my orbit are at that stage 1. They're not at stage 0 where it's like, I don't want to change. They're at stage 1 where they go, I think it's time to change. What that change is, what it entails, don't know. But you catch somebody at that stage, they have a window of time that they need to start exploring a little further what that actually means. And so the most important thing is defining essentially what it is that you want. Because most people don't take the time. They go, I want to lose weight. Cool. And then the next obvious answer or question is, well, how much? And they say, 15 to 20 pounds. That's great. Everybody, in my opinion, that's overweight needs to lose, 15 and 20 pounds. You could always lose that extra bit of weight. You shouldn't be carrying around extra body fat. But the more important question is why? Why would you even go through the effort of doing this? Because if you haven't established your why, then there's no way that you're going to carry on with a workout program that hurts. That's what it does. It burns. It's uncomfortable. You're going out maybe for a 20-minute walk and it's we'll use Celsius here, maybe it's minus 10. It's not necessarily enjoyable because if you haven't framed the why around, let's say, well, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm healthy because I have kids. And that's one of my whys. My main why is I want to be able to sprint and pick up my grandkids and like throw them on my shoulder and like run at them and sidestep and play tag in likely my 70s. Well, I need to have a long, 30-year run where I'm really taking care of myself so that I can get to there. So that's in the back of my mind. So I'm not so concerned that I'm not smashing my records every week because I'm playing a long game, but I'm still playing that game. And so I keep that in the back of my mind. And for most folks, they haven't defined that. So that's what I typically like helping people with is defining it. Well, why? If you don't understand why, it's like any lesson, right? In the military, at least here in Canada, it's like the reason why you need to know this and then fill it in. Well, the reason why we do that is because it tunes you into what you're about to learn. Because if you're explaining something as a teacher, if I'm explaining something without giving context as to why you need to know this, you can just tune out. You have to define your vision and your why. And once you do that, then things start to open up, because then you can realize that, oh, well, I don't need to be a CrossFit champion. I don't even want that. I don't have to deadlift 405 pounds. Why? Like, why? Or like, you don't have to go for a run, dude. Oh, I don't know. That has nothing to do with getting fit. It's just in your mind, that's how you did it in the past. But if your goal is longevity, you can go for a run, but why don't you just go for a walk? Why don't you just eat better? Why don't you just tone it down a notch? And that's kind of the biggest kind of realization that I hope people take from any conversations that, folks like yourself or myself have, is just like, you can just tone it down and just day by day do the actual bare minimum, but stay super consistent, and consistency is king. And that'll get you to whatever longevity, fitness, health goal that you're striving for, because you've defined the why, and then it becomes easy because you know why you're doing it. One of the biggest things, and you kind of touched on it, is you got to dissolve your ego. You got to put your ego aside. I deal with a lot of guys that are coming from soft backgrounds, and just because you're in soft doesn't mean that you're not human. I know you do a lot of incredible things that are superhuman, especially when you're in. And now that they're out, they have the mentality of a soft operator. So they go hard or go home. I used to be able to bench press 355 pounds. I would do X workout in X time. I could run half marathons. I could do marathons. Yes, absolutely. I know, like, that's your job. But your job was also to go and smash Taliban and Al-Qaeda. That's not what you do anymore, right? It's like, no, I got 3 kids and work at an office, or I got a nonprofit that I manage, or cool. So priorities are a little different. It's like, yeah, but I still want to, I know. So I think we just need to change the story and get rid of the ego of, but I want to be able to lift ungodly amounts of weight in my late 40s. Well, why? That's an ego thing. Nobody's looking at you in the gym being like, oh man, that guy used to be in the SEALs and he can't deadlift 255 pounds anymore. Like, who is that guy? Nobody's thinking that. That's in your head. And to be able to say, you know what, I'm okay with going for a walk every day, when you used to do maybe a CrossFit workout every day, is probably one of the most important things for the higher speed guys and gals that are out there. But also, I always say longevity is key. The long game is the only game in town. And what that means is you have to take that dial and turn it to consistency rather than constant intensity. One of the things I typically see in the military community is this propensity to always defer to something extremely hard because we're used to doing that. And if we're not doing it, we feel like we're not working out or we're not getting anything done. And that's not the case at all. When it comes to being healthy, fit, and resilient, it's, can you do 20 minutes a day for the rest of your life?
So it's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it consistently. Small actions like a daily walk or stretching session can make a big difference over time. And even with the best routines, starting something new or restarting after a tough season can feel overwhelming. Dean Stott, a former British Special Forces operator and a record-breaking adventurer, shared how breaking goals into manageable steps is the secret to moving forward. Let's hear from Dean.
During this was 5 years now after leaving the military, I'd sort of neglected my own physical and mental well-being. So my injured leg now was 2 kilograms lighter or 5 pounds lighter than my good leg because of the muscle wastage. And so I just bought a bike off Amazon, just bought a little road bike because the office was 8 miles away from the house and I just cycled to and from the office. But straight away, getting those lungs going again, having a bit of cardiovascular, I felt like there was a huge weight off my shoulders. And we now had our second child, our son, Tommy. And so you imagine and I'm sat in these architects and planners meetings with my wife. She's chatting to all these developers. She's the developer. She's chatting to all these people. They've got all these blueprints on the table. And I'm just sat there. You've heard my backstory. I'm actually bottle feeding my youngest son, just sat there with absolutely no input to any of this. So my wife, she said she looked over and she could just see that glaze. I was lost, So she said, right, you need to do something to keep yourself physically and mentally engaged, which doesn't involve smuggling people across borders. And so I I said, well, I've always fancied doing a world record. Me and my wife actually, an area we missed since leaving the military as well. We also do a lot in the non-profit philanthropy area, especially around veterans, mental health. My wife has been doing a lot in human trafficking for years. So we always do a lot of non-profit. So I was thinking, how can I fundraise? And I said, well, I've always fancied doing a world record. And she said, well, what in? And I said, well, cycling seems to be good. And I didn't cycle more than 20 miles at this point. I said, well, cycling seems to be good because it's not hurting my knee. I know that my knee injury or my injury from the past isn't going to be an issue on the bike. And so my wife, we lived in Scotland. My wife's, I'm thinking maybe east to west coast of Scotland. And my wife then throws the Guinness Book of Records at me and finds the world's longest road called the Pan American Highway, which runs 14,000 miles over 2 continents. I said, what about this one? So I sort of joked that she wanted me out of the house at the time. And so I said, yeah, perfect. So never mean to sound arrogant at all, but having only cycled 20 miles, I applied for the world record to Guinness. And they came back 6 weeks later, said, yes, you've been successful on your application. It's almost like a pitch, though. You can't just apply and it's guaranteed. You have to have a pitch with it. So sort of had a little of a pitch story, and they came back. So that's how we then decided we were doing the bike ride. And it wasn't. I was 40 years old at this point by the time when Guinness came back.
Are there any lessons that you can take for people, just trying to work through their day to day, that they can take from this story? Yeah,
I think for this is the iceberg scenarios. Just chip away. Don't look. Whether it's if I looked at 14,000 miles, it'd just consume you. I wouldn't even get on the flight. Because it just seems so far out of reach for me. And it's a bit like. What I took from that is my lessons learned from the military. When I was on the Special Forces selection, on day one, I'm not thinking about 6 months later, getting my beret and my new beret and belt. I'm thinking about, what do I need to do today? What do I need to do in the next 2 hours? And so that's what I did with this challenge. I didn't look at. I broke it into countries. I broke it into days. I broke the days into 4 stages as well each day. And so for me, it was almost like doing four training rides a day. That's how I tricked my mind, So it was, I'd get up in the morning, have a big breakfast. I'd cycle as fast as I could for 2 hours, and that would give me the average speed for the day. I'd then get off my bike. I was quite disciplined in my timings. It was 30 minutes from getting off the bike, having some food and water, and then I was back on the bike. I wasn't having a selfie with a llama. I wasn't chatting to a documentary team and things like that. I would just look at the next 2 hours. I wouldn't look at what's happening tomorrow, what's happening next week in whatever country. And so for me, it was just about just chipping away, just slowly chipping away, because each mile, I always said it's only 14,000 miles until you've done the first mile. That's how I said to my wife, it's only 14,000 miles till I've done the first mile. That's it. And I would just slowly chip away. And before you know it, you've done a day, you've done a week, you've done a country, you've got a world record. And then you're slowly, physically and mentally getting stronger as well. I was a different cyclist from the day that I started to the day that I finished. I was 200 pounds when I started. I made sure I kept that weight on. Again, lessons learned from my time in the Special Forces. You don't start a 6-month course 100% fit because you'll burn out week 2, week 3. You start 75, 80% fit, carrying a bit of excessive weight, and then you use that to your advantage. So there was a lot of takeaways from my time in the Special Forces in the military that I did on the bike.
Dean's advice is a reminder that even the biggest mountains are climbed one step at a time. Start small, celebrate small wins, and let the momentum build from there. Building lasting habits isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you start with a gratitude practice, a simple workout, or breaking your goals into smaller pieces, every step matters. As you move into this new year, remember the wisdom from our guests. Set the tone with intention, prioritize your well-being, and give yourself grace along the way. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who might need a little inspiration to kickstart their year. And as always, we're here to walk this journey with you. Also, remember, you can catch the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast on Reach Across America Radio, available on platforms like iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app.